Welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Emma Quinn. I am an interior designer, life coach, author, and speaker, and I am on a mission to empower you to overcome anxiety and live your best life. Join me each week where I'll be sharing personal stories, tips, and tricks to help you achieve this. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Emma Quinn, and this is my first ever episode of my new podcast. So this is very exciting, but also, if I'm being honest, it's quite daunting. So I have been thinking about starting a podcast, honestly, for years now. But it's just all a bit surreal to be sitting here finally recording my first episode. It's exciting, as I said, but there does feel like there's a bit of pressure and a bit of fear in, sharing my story so openly. And so I just hope that it maybe resonates with you and you get something from it. I know I feel like so weird using this microphone and headphones because I've been sitting in my office for the past 6 months. So it's good probably that I'm finally putting them to use. So I'm actually recording this on video as well. I've got my little matcha latte, which I am trying to make myself drink. I don't know if I quite am enjoying it or not. I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm too old to get on the matcha craze. But we'll give it a go. It makes me feel like, a serious content creator. So let's get started. So basically, I wanted to just give you a little intro, kind of a bit about why I decided to start this podcast, how it all came about. So I basically went from a couple of years ago being at probably one of the lowest points in my life. I went from being highly anxious, insecure, and struggling with birth trauma and insomnia, to go on to kind of overcome these issues to really become the thriving, confident, badass boss bitch that my alter ego that I sometimes try and force myself to step into. But honestly, I do feel like I've overcome these issues and I have become so much more confident in myself, and this is something that I'm trying to get better with, praising myself, and that I would love for you to get better at this as well and to really normalize praising yourself like this. So I'm going to start by sharing a bit about myself, as I said, and how the podcast came about. So I am an interior designer. And I work with clients to create their dream homes, which is something I've honestly been so passionate about from such a young age. As soon as I knew what an interior designer was, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I went through a phase of being like, I want to be a fashion designer, but then I think it was when I watched The Devil Wears Prada, I was like, oh hell no, not for me. I'm too nice to be in that industry. So interior design was kind of the path I went down. So I lived and worked in Canada and the US for several years throughout my 20s before returning back to Ireland about 6 years ago and starting my own design studio, Emma Quinn Design. So at the time of recording, I am 37 years old. I am married and I have a little 4-year-old girl called Mia. I'm also a dog mom. Yes, I'm one of those annoying people. So apologies in advance if you are not into dogs, if you're one of these people that does not like pets or animals. I am unashamedly a proud dog mom to my little furry friend Aggie, who we don't even really know exactly how old she is because she's kind of we adopted her. She's kind of like a little rescue dog. No one really knows what age she is. We think she's about 8, who knows, but she's got an old soul and she actually thinks she's a human. So I recently released a book called Life by Design, which of course, as you can probably guess, was the inspiration for this podcast. So the story behind the book and this podcast started when my daughter Mia was born back in 2020. She was born during the first COVID-19 lockdown, which I'm sure you can all remember. You know, oh God, just thinking back now, it just feels like kind of a weird nightmare or like some crazy episode of Black Mirror. I don't know. Crazy times, but we all had a tough time. You know, I was no different. I ended up having a traumatic birth, which ended up in an emergency C-section and had to stay in hospital for several days afterwards. I wasn't allowed to see anyone, including my husband. And then whenever I did get back home, I really sort of struggled with not being able to see family or friends and being home alone with this tiny new human to look after. So even when things started to slowly open up again, I just found myself like, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but just like so anxious and on edge, like all the time. There wouldn't even have to be anything outwardly wrong, but I just had this feeling of like dread. I was having flashbacks and nightmares about my daughter's birth, and then just insomnia. Could not sleep at all for months on end. It got to the point where I was crying every day, and I just felt like I wasn't coping very well. So this went on for about 8 months. And then one day I had my daughter and my little dog out for a walk, and I just broke down crying in the middle of the road. Thank God nobody saw me, or they would have probably had me locked up. It was at that point that I just realised like I needed help. So I came back home and I rang my health visitor, and she was amazing, and she put me in touch with a local organisation called Centred Soul in Newry, my local town. So Centred Soul at the time offered perinatal mental health support, and within a few weeks I had started counselling and going to their birth trauma support group. So the counselling, it was the first time I had ever done anything like that, and it was quite hard at first. I felt very like emotional during the first few sessions, but as the weeks went on, I really noticed myself starting to feel a bit better. My doctor also prescribed me with antidepressants, which also helped. The thing that they really helped with was my racing heart, and I think that's what was disturbing my sleep so much. You know, I constantly felt like my heart was racing and I just could not relax even for a minute, which made it very hard to sleep. So whatever your opinion is on medication or anything like that, I like just at the time they were such a lifesaver for me. They really helped with the heart race. So of course want to add a disclaimer here. I am by no means a medical professional, and any advice I'm given here on this podcast is purely based on my own experience. So please always consult your own doctor before taking any medication or treatment. So I really began looking forward to my weekly counselling sessions, and I thought I would, do some research and see if there were any other self-help classes or things like that that I could attend. I discovered there were actually a lot of things available, most of which were free. So I did a gratitude and journaling workshop. I did an EFT course. I did colour breathing, mindfulness, meditation, as well as yoga, Pilates, and I even accidentally signed myself up for a senior citizen Tai Chi class run by a lovely lady named Doris. So shout out to Doris, wherever she is. I very much doubt she's listening to this podcast, but if she is, how's it going, Doris? So I was really determined to overcome this beast that was anxiety. I started reading again, which I hadn't done for a while. I started listening to podcasts again, and to my relief, I really started to see improvements in my mood and my health. So I started sleeping better than ever. I had more energy, and I had just a real positive outlook on life that I really hadn't had in years. So when I was feeling better, I started opening up to family and friends about what I had been going through. And honestly, to my utter surprise, almost all of them, this is no exaggeration, have been going through something similar. So why does no one talk about this? I thought, I know this sounds like a cliche, but if only we started sharing how we were feeling with those around us, we could really make things a bit less daunting and start to normalise talking about our mental health. So I now had all of this knowledge and experience with the tools and techniques that had helped me to overcome my issues, and I really just did not want to keep it to myself. I wanted to share it with other women who may also be going through something similar in the hopes it could help them also. So this is where the idea for the book was born. So I realised one day what I had been doing was treating my life like I would an interior design project. So a few years ago, I developed what I like to call my design manifesto. So this is basically a set of 12 principles I live by in my work as a designer. I realised that I had been unknowingly applying these to my life as a whole to overcome anxiety and birth trauma. This is where the title of the book and now the podcast, Life by Design, comes from. So when I felt like I had overcome my anxiety, I really felt this burning desire and motivation to help others, and just this confidence that I never had before. I had this whole new appreciation for life, and just to be feeling so good that I didn't want to waste a second. So I was on a mission to live my best life, to go after some of the big, audacious goals I never thought would even be possible for me. And in the process, if I could inspire others to do the same. So this is what the book is all about. So over the course of the Life by Design podcast, I am going to walk you through some of the steps in the book. I'm going to give you some practical tips and tricks for implementing these into your own life. But for now, I wanted to leave you with a quick little tip that you can use the next time you find yourself feeling anxious. So this is something I discovered. It's more of like a mindset shift. But basically, it's to reframe anxiety into excitement. So what I've learned from reading and podcasts and different things like that is anxiety shows up, it's in as the same physiology in your body. So you get a lot of the same like feelings in your body, a lot of the same side effects. So like racing heart, butterflies in your tummy, sweaty palms maybe. So rather than just immediately viewing that as anxiety and feeling this dread that comes along with that, try reframing that and turning it into something that is actually, you're excited to do this. You know, maybe you feel nervous or you feel that stress building, but, you know, try reframing it into something more positive. So another thing you can do is if you find yourself feeling anxious about something that you feel like you have to do, is to reframe that into I get to do this rather than I have to do this. It kind of brings it back to gratitude, which I know a lot of people think is kind of a bit redundant at this stage, like everyone seems to be talking about it, but it really does work. So it's just that simple mindset shift of rather than, oh God, you know, I have to do this stupid thing that I don't want to do, turn it into I get to do this. Like, how lucky am I that I get to do this? So an example of this is I recently released an online academy. So it's for people building new homes. It's called the Interior Design for New Builds Academy. And I have had this idea probably for about nearly 2 years. And I did so much work on the videos and everything behind the scenes. And when it finally came to launching it and releasing it for the first time, I was like, oh God, like, you know, all the fear started creeping in. Like, what if no one likes it? Like, what if no one signs up? You know, like, who am I to be doing this? Like, what if people judge me? Like, all of these things came up, and I did feel like anxious. I really did. And, you know, rather than being like, oh God, like, this is something that I have to do, I have to put it out there, I really tried to reframe it into excitement. And I said to myself, like, hang on a minute, I recognized what, you know, was happening, this thought pattern that was happening, and I turned it into, no, I get to do this. Like, this has been like a dream for me. It has been a passion project. It's something that I've poured my heart and soul into. You know, I have nothing to worry about, like whether or not, you know, people like it or whatever. That's out of my hands. I know that I've done my best, and how lucky am I that I get to do this. I get to put this work out into the world. So it really helped me with that, and it really just switched it back to the gratitude and just making me feel more positive about it. So hopefully you can try that in your own life. So another way to look at this is to channel your anxiety. So this is what I really learned how to do. So rather than letting anxiety rule your life and take control over you and how you're feeling and how you're acting and how you're showing up in the world, you can really I don't know how else to say this, but you can really make anxiety your bitch. So remember that you are the one in control of your emotions. Anxiety is an emotion. It is showing up for a reason. A lot of the time anxiety can be helpful. It's showing us, something that we need to work through, or, something that we maybe should be a little bit careful about at times. And other times it shows up when it really shouldn't. So just remember that you are the one in the driver's seat. So rather than letting the anxiety run rampant and cause havoc in your life, channel that into something really positive that, you can take something good from that for your life. So that was all I really wanted to say for this little intro. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. So if you enjoyed this and you are curious to learn more about overcoming anxiety and living your best life, I would love it if you could join me for my next episode. So in the meantime, you can find me all over social media. Instagram is the place probably where I hang out the most. I'm at emmaquinn.design. If you want to check out any of my services or any other ways you can work with me, you can have a look at my website. It's emmaquinndesign.com. And of course, I would love if you could subscribe or leave a little review for the pod. Just helps me reach more people, and I would really appreciate it. So thank you all so much, everyone. I'm going to leave all the links down below with the book and all of that if you're interested in learning more about that. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Now go out there and live your best life by design.